Okay, recording. Welcome to the webinar, Empowering Your Retirement, the Fundamentals of Estate Planning and Asset Protection I'm going to be covering. And I've got a guest on with us today, Emily Lanciana. That's said right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
From Apt Wealth. So Emily is a financial planner. I work with Emily a fair bit, and Emily's business partner, colleague, Andrew Dunbar, and you guys are based in Collins Street. So
that's right. Yeah.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do today with the webinar is that I have got it recording, so everyone will get the recorded replay for those who haven't been able to jump in straight away. I'm going to share my screen in a second and just do a little bit more of an introduction. Then we're going to jump onto Emily's presentation and then come back to a little bit more from me. There is a chat box. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, it's if you move your mouse, a little chat thing usually comes up down the bottom strip. If you click on that, you'll get an extra box and you can type away in there. When we're sharing our screens, we won't be able to see what's in that chat box. So type in what questions you have and we'll come back and have a look at the chat box at the end. Alrighty. So I'm just sharing my screen there. Emily, can you confirm that you can see mine?
Yes, I sure can.
Excellent. All right. So as I said, we're really talking about empowering retirement today, particularly from a female perspective. Obviously, you know, Emily and I are females. We relate to females. There's also a hell of a lot of stats around that, you know, because of a lot of social and structural issues, women are often left behind in terms of being prepared for retirement financially. And also women end up being in caring roles. And from an estate planning perspective, being in a caring role, there are a lot of duties and obligations there that you need to be aware of. But you also need to be thinking about yourself and who's going to look after you too. So as I said at the beginning, my name's Jackie Broman. I'm from TBA Law. So TBA Law is my business. I've been running that for a little over 7 years. I am a Law Institute accredited wills and estate specialist. There is only about 80 of us in Victoria, and there's probably about 22,000 lawyers. So it's a rare little club. And there's also a little photo on the screen there that, you know, obviously the law is not my whole life. My husband and my dog are in that photo on our boat over at Eildon. That's actually this time last year, roughly. So we do a lot of fishing. So there you go, a little bit of trivia. So as a wills and estate specialist, I do a whole lot of estate planning. I do a whole lot of deceased estate administration as well, but estate planning's my passion really, because I see a lot of administrations go wrong and a lot of families fall apart if the estate planning is not done right. I have come across a fair bit of elder abuse, misuse of powers of attorney, and people not clearly thinking about who they're going to appoint and how it's going to work, and then it's really difficult practically if it's not done right. And estate planning has changed a lot over the last 50 years or so. 50 years ago, everyone's situations were a lot simpler. Most of us probably didn't have super back then. People were less likely to have blended families. The main asset was usually a house that was owned outright in the couple's name. There wasn't trusts, there weren't investment properties necessarily. So it was simpler times, and hence estate planning was really simple. There was a will, and usually the will was one page. really difficult to have such a simple situation these days. Blended families, super, all sorts of other aspects of our lives. And so this little poker chip, I call it, on the screen there shows a lot of the aspects of estate planning that I cover off during a process. So wills are part of that, but we obviously have to look at what the property is that is and how it's owned before we can actually do the estate planning correctly. Enduring powers of attorney are now extremely important. Medical treatment appointments for decision makers. Advanced healthcare directives are becoming more and more important. Superannuation is an asset that Emily will no doubt talk more about, and it's not an asset that is covered by your will. And for a lot of us, it's one of our biggest assets, so it does need special attention. We can do a whole lot of interesting things with wills in terms of how people inherit through trusts. And there's other assets as well, or payments that come in to form part of the estate, like life insurances, and other insurances need to be looked at as well if you become unwell. For those who have young children, appointing a guardian in a will is vital. However, if you don't also leave some instructions to your guardian about how you want your children raised, you know, that could miss a critical point. And then as part of the process, we're also looking at other structures that you might have surrounding what you own, family trusts, self-managed super, unit trusts, companies that you're running small businesses in, all these sorts of things. So that, I suppose, is my little introduction about who I am and how I cover off estate planning and some of the critical things, I suppose, that need to be thought about, not just coming up to retirement, but at crucial parts in your life. Estate planning is important. For example, after a marriage, when there's new children, and then, you know, approaching retirement, and then also, you know, if you've been retired for 10 years or so and things have changed, it's also a good time then to re-look at all this. So I suppose that's all I'll cover initially. I'm going to now hand over to Emily to give us an introduction for yourself and, yeah, launch into some great content for us.
Perfect. Well, I'm just sharing my screen. So my name's Emily, as Jackie said, and I work at App12 Partners. I've been there for the last 2 years, but I've been practicing as a financial advisor for the last 8. So I'm just going to go through some little tips for empowering your retirement and how women can maximise their retirement years. So this quote is actually our favourite quote at App12. At the end, you'll regret the things you didn't do instead of the things you did. And I think it's really important because most people really focus on their retirement and planning for the future, but it's really important to make sure you do all the things that you want today, as well as keep an eye on tomorrow. So with women, I find that they don't actually understand their financial position. Generally, women outlive their partners, but their partners are generally the ones that control the finances in the household. So it's really important for women to understand their finances, and they can do this by attending their financial planning appointments, which are usually just once a year. So making sure you take the time to really understand what's going on. And if you don't have a financial planner, then asking your partner exactly what's going on in your financial position. Because if something was to happen to your partner, you want to make sure that you're not stressing about money when you should be grieving the loss of your partner. It's just going to cause unnecessary stress. So a lot of people don't know exactly how much they'll need to retire. It could be any of those amounts on the screen, 300, 500,000, 750,000 or $1 million. At the moment, AFSA, who's the superannuation fund body in Australia, says that singles need approximately 545,000 to live a comfortable life, and couples need 640,000 to live a comfortable life. But it's really important to realise that that figure should be specific to your situation. So the things that we consider when putting together a plan for our clients are each of the following. So do you want to retire immediately and stop working at age 65, for example, or do you slowly want to phase out work, start working 4 days, 3 days, 2 days until you stop? Do you want to downsize your house, which would free up some cash to contribute to superannuation? Do you want to purchase cars at regular intervals, say 3 years, 5 years, or are you happy running down your car, until it's dead, which means you're going to get the most out of it? How often do you want to travel? Where do you want to travel? Do you want to do it in luxury, or do you want to do it, quite basically? And do you want to help out your children? So some people are perfectly happy letting their children fend for themselves. Others want to help out with a deposit for a home. And all of these factors are really going to determine exactly what your superannuation balance should look like at retirement. So we see two types of people that come to APT. The first one is reflected by the blue graph. So they've come to us at an early age and they've wanted to start preparing for their retirement. Either that, or they've just come to us with a larger balance. And the income that their portfolio is producing is enough for them to live off in retirement. And the conversations that we have with these people are all about the exciting travel that they're doing, as well as, what's going on with the family, what are they doing? And it's a very simple conversation regarding finances, maybe 15 to 20 minutes on, changing some investments, but mainly just talking about how much fun they're having in retirement. The second, reflected by the blue graph, is more those retirees who come to us with a lower balance to start with, have left retirement planning too late, or the income that they're drawing in retirement is not as much as the portfolio is generating. The conversations are very different. They're stressed about money. Can we take the next trip? Can we help our children? Can we afford to buy a new car? It's questioning all of those decisions rather than feeling comfortable to take them. And we aim to get all of our clients to the blue bar, making sure that their investments are generating enough income to last them so that they don't have to draw down on the capital in retirement. So how do we do this? How do we get our clients to this point and help them achieve peace of mind and to live their desired lifestyle? So we look at things like maximising your superannuation, creating tax-effective strategies, minimising tax where possible, accessing government benefits, whether that's Centrelink or Newstart, or just little tips like the government co-contribution or the spouse contribution. Helping them to structure their investments properly to survive market downturns, and we found that a lot of our clients really benefited from this in the global financial crisis. And ensuring that your income lasts throughout retirement, which is the most important thing. Obviously, superannuation is there to draw down on. You've worked so hard during your career to build up this pool of money, and it is only natural that it deteriorates over time. However, we want this to be as slow as possible. So hopefully, if it's important to you, you can leave some money to your beneficiaries, or you can make, better decisions, or do things that you like to do, like travel business class or buy a luxury car, all of those sort of things. So it's really important that you understand the investments within your portfolio. And unfortunately, a lot of people have no idea where their money is invested. I can ask so many people, do you know where your money is invested? And they just have no idea. So the middle pie graph shows how most people's money is invested in an industry fund. So it could be in a little bit of fixed interest, a little bit of cash, a little bit of shares, and a little bit of property. But generally, there is no disclosure and transparency about exactly how much money is invested in each of those shares and each of those components. We recommend that our clients go into a superannuation fund that allows them to choose their own investments. The reason for this is that industry funds have to meet the best interest duties of all of their members. So members can range from ages 20 to 65 and older. And what's right for a 65-year-old who's drawing down on their superannuation balance isn't necessarily right for someone who's 20 and wants to grow their superannuation for retirement, which is 40 years away. A retiree requires shares and investments that are going to generate an income for them and be relatively secure as they're drawing down on their income. Whereas a 20-year-old is 40 years until they can access their superannuation. So they want to be able to invest in things like Microsoft and Apple and Google that are really earning a strong rate of growth. So this slide really shows the benefit of structuring your superannuation correctly. So we have Maxine here and Jane, who have two very different types of superannuation. Maxine has an industry fund that has a unitized account. So let's assume for this example that each unit in Maxine's account is worth $1. Okay, so both Jane and Maxine start with $1 million in their superannuation account, and they draw $6,000 per month to fund living expenses in retirement. That means that Maxine is selling down 6,000 units per month to fund her retirement expenses. All of a sudden, the GFC hits, and now the value of those units in Maxine's account are worth 50 cents. What this means is that now she has to sell 12,000 units in her superannuation fund. Each unit is comprised of cash, fixed interest, shares, and property. So she can't control where the money is coming from. She has to sell down a little bit of each to meet those expenses. Jane, on the other hand, has her own superannuation account with all of her own investments. And she has a cash account, which is where the $6,000 is coming out from. So she just continues to receive all the dividends from the shares, as well as the interest from the term deposits that she's got and fixed interest investments. And as a result, she's leaving her investments intact, and she's not forced to sell those investments when the market is low and those investments are worth less. As a result, Maxine unfortunately can't recover her funds, and her balance is $375,000 as opposed to Jane's $838,000. And that's what we found during the financial crisis, is a lot of people coming to us in Maxine's situation and us having to help people like Maxine to get back to where they started. So the way that you structure your investments is absolutely essential and can determine whether you're going to have enough money in retirement. So there's things that you can do to maximize your superannuation. So first we'll go into why superannuation is a good investment. So the main reason is that it can reduce your taxable income and the tax that you pay. So that comes from making concessional contributions. It's concessionally taxed, so earnings within the portfolio are taxed at 15% as opposed to your marginal tax rate outside of superannuation. It is forced savings for retirement. It's an effective estate planning tool, and at retirement, it's a tax-free income to you. So there's two ways to build your superannuation, and the first is via concessional contributions. So these are comprised of your 9.5% employer contributions that you get either on a monthly or quarterly basis, and then any additional salary sacrifice contributions that you make. These are pre-tax contributions, and these are what reduce your taxable income and your tax payable. The cap for this is $25,000 per annum. The next way is after-tax contributions, also known as non-concessional contributions. So the caps for this, are $100,000 per annum, or you can do a 3-year catch-up payment, which means you can make $300,000 this year and then not make any contributions for the next 2 years after this financial year. The government have also just released the ability to catch up on superannuation contributions. This is really important for women who find themselves out of the workforce due to maternity leave or just taking time out of the workforce for any reason. So what that means is that you can catch up your concessional contributions up to 5 years after the initial contribution. So say you make a contribution of $15,000 this year, you can then make the $10,000 catch-up payment after any years up to 5 years. Okay, but this just means this can only be done if your balance is less than $500,000. There's also a few little tips and tricks that are available to those people earning under a certain threshold. So if you earn less than $51,000 per year, you can make a contribution of $500 after tax, that is, and the government will give you $500 free into your superannuation. Okay, it's just a small amount, but every dollar adds up in retirement, especially if you're doing this every year. And also the spouse contribution. So what that means is that if you are earning less than $40,000 per annum and your partner contributes $3,000 into your account or vice versa, then you can receive, or your partner can receive, a tax offset of up to $540. Again, this is a handy little trick that you can do every year. So retirement is a time to invest in the experience. We really just encourage you to plan for retirement early, work out what your goals are, and see a financial planner just to put a plan in place for you to make sure that you're able to achieve all your goals and objectives. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to help. Otherwise, I'll let Jackie take over.
That was great. Really good. Thank you, Emily. It actually, it was good to know the amounts that are being suggested at the moment for people retiring.
Yeah.
And obviously that will fluctuate depending on the value of money. So by the time you and I are looking at retirement, the amount that we'll need in super will be different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for someone who's 5 to 10 years away from retirement, looking at that could either be reassuring because they're close or over that, or it could be scary because they're like, okay, we have to do some serious stuff here. But then in terms of thinking about contributions, as you say, the 300,000 put in and then nothing for another couple of years might suit someone who decides to downsize a house and has a whole lump sum left, as you said. Yep. And so they chuck that into super. Whole lot of strategies there.
Yeah, heaps of strategies that people aren't aware of.
Yep. But even the unitized stuff was very interesting with the industry funds. I'm with an industry fund at the moment, and I suppose it depends on the stage of life that you're at as well.
Exactly.
Because I'm pumping in my 25,000 a year. And mine is legal super. It's a legal industry super fund. And the performance on it is fine. But as you say, as people are looking to approach retirement, choosing a fund that has far more flexibility sounds like the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. It is most important when you are retiring and you are starting to draw on that income, because that's where the risk really lies. And some people have found themselves having to go back to work because of what happened in the global financial crisis. Their money has just fallen in value by so much that they just don't have enough to last them.
Yeah.
We want to avoid that at all costs. Obviously, we want you to enjoy your retirement. It's, you've worked for 40, 50 odd years, and it's your time to, enjoy yourself and relax. So
absolutely. So some great stuff in there. Let's see what I can add in terms of the estate planning side of things. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my slides. And keeping in mind that we're concentrating more on approaching retirement. So when I was talking about the elements of estate planning earlier, I did speak about appointing guardians. Now, obviously, people approaching retirement will hopefully not have minor children. Hopefully that's well and truly over, and you've got adult children potentially having their own children, which is why I think it's more important to be discussing guardianship with your adult children. Because as you're approaching retirement, your plans are to enjoy your retirement with your spouse or however your family situation is. And if something happened to your children and you had to raise your grandchildren, you haven't factored that in financially. And if your children haven't actually structured an appointment of guardians properly, you may not have access to the trust funds that are set aside for the children to raise them. And you might end up in some kind of horrible court battle as well if your children haven't addressed this issue. So one of the main reasons that I actually decided to specialise in estate planning was about 6 years ago, a friend of mine who was in the public prosecutions at the time was prosecuting a lady who had run a red light and killed a young couple who were crossing the road. This young couple had come down to watch an AFL game for the weekend from New South Wales. They'd left their kids at home with one of the sets of grandparents. They didn't have wills. And my friend was doing the sentencing for this woman, and there was victim impact statements done around the situation that these kids had found themselves in. It had been 18 months since their parents had been killed. And they had been in and out of family court for that whole 18 months because the grandparents of each of the parents of their parents, their grandparents hated each other. So there was, I think, 3 different parties fighting to have these children and fighting to have control of the money. And that's not at all how these parents would have wanted their children's lives to have been. And that was one of the main reasons I just thought this can be done so much better. And so I think it's important to have the discussion with your adult children, because you've got to think of everyone's quality of life, don't you? Now, asset protection is a big part of estate planning as well. We want to maximise the estate. We want it to get to the right people, and we don't want it to be at risk in their hands. So we can do all sorts of things in terms of, directing inheritance into trusts and things like that. But as Emily touched upon, super is also, as well as going to fund your retirement, it's also an interesting asset estate planning tool. So super is not an asset that's covered by your will. And for a lot of people, particularly, in their 20s, 30s and 40s, it's their biggest asset, because there's a large insurance component most of the time on your super. And particularly in blended family situations, we can use super in an interesting way, where we think that there is a risk of a claim against an estate or a dispute in the estate. We can make sure that the super won't be at risk and won't be part of that dispute by directing the super specifically to a person through a binding nomination, for example. So in a blended family situation, you might have, so if we're talking about the dad has adult children from his first marriage and he's remarried to his new wife. He has a binding nomination for all his super to go to his new wife. So that'll go to her, doesn't form part of the estate. So that's secure in her hands. The kids can't dispute that, can't attack it. And then in his will, he is freed up then to perhaps leave some money to his kids in his will, knowing that his wife is well and truly provided for. So it's one of the things we can do there. And look, from a retirement point of view, unfortunately, we have heard a lot of those stories where people retire and look forward to their retirement, and then all of a sudden get sick as soon as they retire. And I suppose, as morbid as it is, and that's why I think a lot of people shy away from estate planning, we do have to do it when we're well, because by the time we're not well, sometimes it's too late, particularly when you're thinking about powers of attorney. It's not fun as a solicitor to run down to someone's deathbed in a hospital to sign documents. Not that you need to be worrying about our feelings, but it's certainly not something that I would hope someone on their deathbed is worried about, because hopefully they've done it all. And so that's why, I really try and encourage people to do their estate planning when they can, early as they can, because once it's too late, it's too late. And look, a lot of capacity issues arise when there starts to be elder abuse situations as well. So we don't like when the family rolls in their 90-year-old mother to redo everything if it's not necessary and the documents have all been done already. So have a think about that as well as you're approaching retirement. But the other thing, I suppose, is, as I said before, retirement, and as Emily said, retirement's supposed to be your time to enjoy yourself. You may have elderly parents as well, which you need to be thinking about. And so perhaps as you're approaching retirement, you need to be thinking about encouraging them to make sure their estate planning's up to date. Because if they haven't thought about it thoroughly for 20 years, it certainly needs updating, and they certainly need particularly powers of attorney in place. If there aren't sufficient powers of attorney, you start having difficulties around aged care issues, and and obviously medical decisions. So I suppose it just brings to light that bracket of people in their 50s and 60s that are approaching retirement are really like the key generation, with their elderly parents relying on them and their adult children below them. That it's so important that you're aware of the estate planning for both generations on either side of you, as well as having your own affairs sorted. It's not a difficult process. Emily mentioned that, with your financial planning as well, once you set up your financial plan, usually it's only a 6-month or a 12-month meeting and updates. And look, for estate planning, people put it off because they think it's more difficult than it is. It's a 2-appointment process, 2 or 3 weeks apart, depending on how we catch up. The first appointment can be done remotely. The second appointment, preferably because of signing requirements, is done face-to-face, but we do have ways around that. So it's not something to be intimidated by. And when we do the estate plan, we try and do it to last 20 years, right? So it's only once every 20 years you really need to do it. We do encourage people to review it every 3 to 5 years, but reviewing it doesn't involve having to come to a solicitor. It's just checking that it's still relevant. And if nothing has to change, then leave it. And that's why getting it done properly in the first place is so important. So I'm going to skip one slide and I'm just going to go, thank you very much for attending, and stop the share. There you go. What do you think?
Jackie, that was great. Yeah.
Added a little bit more.
Yeah, and we send all of our clients to Jackie just because the process is so simple from start to finish. She includes us on it and it's just really seamless. And yeah, we enjoy sending our clients to Jackie.
Yeah, and I'm not scary either, am I?
No,
which is just like you guys. You're not scary either.
We both want the best for our clients and just, want to do what's in their best interest.
Very much so. So now that we're back on this screen, I can see the chat box again, and we still only have one hello from Tiff. So we must be great, Emily. Like there's no questions.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions? Now's the time to ask.
Chuck them in the chat box. So there was a fellow on earlier, Andrew, but it looks like he's ducked out. But we've still got a couple of other ladies there. So don't be shy. You've got us for free. So in terms of how people even start to engage a financial planner, how do they do that?
Well, our first consultation is free, and during that appointment we go through a bit about apps and what we do, but then the majority of the appointment is just focusing on your current situation and then what you want to achieve, your goals and objectives for the short term, medium term and long term. If you decide to engage our services, there is a fee for a statement of advice, and that just documents all of our recommendations, the outcomes of those recommendations, and then we generally also provide that projections on where your money is going to look in the next 10, 20, 30 years. So once that cost is paid for, you can choose to accept or decline, and then if you choose to accept, there's an ongoing membership fee to Act Wealth, and we meet every 6 months to a year to review that, make sure you're on track. We have a budgeting software that's really helpful. It tracks your spending over time as well as your net wealth position at any one given point, and we also provide that as a little additional benefit to our clients.
Good. Particularly handy for people approaching retirement, I suppose, and getting a hold on what their spending is, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, working out where your money is actually going, because a lot of people are quite, let's just say, in denial about their budget and where it's going.
the other thing or barrier that I seem to find with people in them wanting to engage with either us in the process of estate planning or with a financial planner is that they just they don't know what to bring or what information they need. But I generally tell people just bring yourself.
Yeah.
Because the process will dig into what we need.
Yeah.
And then you can get the extra information to us after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same.
We do have an initial email that we send out to you if you do engage us, which lists all of the documents that you should bring along with you. But this isn't,
It's not crucial.
necessary. No, you don't have to. You can just bring yourself, and we can get all of those additional documents later from you. Yeah.
Yep. So it's not a barrier to getting started.
No.
Because as you say, a lot of women, particularly if they've had a partner pass away that has been the person controlling the finances or been the one that's been more on top of it, they just, it's too much to even think where to start. So if they just know they just have to come in, get comfortable, and then go from there.
And one of the things that we are very passionate about is educating our clients. So educating those women who have been left on their own, or even educating couples. We just don't want you to come in and see us and tick all the boxes and that's it and you leave. We want to make you aware of your finances, teach you about investments, teach you about the structure of your superannuation, so that you can also make decisions. We often say that we are the CFO to your situation. So Act Wealth will give you the pros and cons of each decision, but ultimately it's your money. You want to be making those decisions as the CEO of your situation. So that's really important to us.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And also, hence the title of this webinar, Empowering Your Retirement, because people who are not educated or in control themselves are not empowered, are they? Because you're just doing it for them without them understanding.
Exactly, yeah. So we do encourage our clients to have input and not just let us make all the decisions for them.
Exactly. And that the myth that a lot of women throw around that, I'm not good with numbers, I'm not good with maths, it's not an inherently female or male thing. And I think most women understand 20% off, 50% off. We understand.
We've done enough shopping in our time.
Exactly. That's right. So we just transfer those skills into growing our wealth rather than growing our shoe closet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
So true. Yeah.
All right. Well, no questions. So I am going to stop the recording. And I hope that everyone got a lot of value out of that. Our contact details are available where this is shared. Thanks, Michelle.
Don't worry, Michelle.
So hope you have a safe afternoon in this unseasonal weather, and take care.
See you later, ladies. Have a lovely day.